My name is Eleanor Voss. I am 78 years old, and I have learned that the most dangerous moments in life are the ones that feel the most ordinary. Last Sunday, everything changed in the 22 seconds it took the elevator to climb from the lobby to my seventh-floor apartment. I stepped in with 2 heavy grocery bags, pot roast, carrots, a bottle of Merlot for the sauce, thinking only of my granddaughter, Amelia, and the Sunday dinner I had planned. The doors were sliding shut when they reopened on the 4th floor. Leonard Hale, my quiet neighbor of 3 years, stepped inside. He was 57, always polite, always wearing the same gray cardigan. But that afternoon, his eyes were glassy, his breathing shallow, his hands trembling like leaves in a storm. He didn't speak. He simply pressed the number 7, then slipped a small folded note into my palm. His fingers were ice. "Don't say anything," he mouthed. The note read, "Fake sick. Get out now." Scene. I laughed inside. Surely a prank. But his face stopped me cold, pale, desperate, terrified. My heart slammed against my ribs. Without thinking, I clutched my chest, swayed, and gasped, "Oh Lord, I'm dizzy." Leonard hit the emergency stop. The elevator jolted between floors. He pried the doors open with shaking hands. "Go, Miss Voss, now." I stumbled out, groceries spilling, apples rolling down the hall. He held the doors as I backed away. Our eyes locked one last time, his filled with a sorrow so deep it felt like a scream. Then the doors closed. Sirens came 10 minutes later. Police, ambulance, neighbors pouring into the lobby. Someone shouted about blood in the elevator. I sat frozen in the 4th floor hallway, note crumpled in my fist. An officer knocked on my door an hour later. "Miss Eleanor Voss?" "Yes." "The man in the elevator with you. Leonard Hale. He's dead, stabbed." "You were the last person to see him alive." Dead. I had just touched him. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his whisper, felt the paper in my hand. I turned on the lamp and unfolded the note again. On the back, in faint blue ink, "Don't trust anyone in this building." I laughed. Bitter, hollow. I had lived in Harbor View Towers for 32 years. I knew every soul. Doris Klein on 5, always borrowing sugar. The Peterson twins on 6, bickering like children. My son Julian and his wife Vanessa on 8. Vanessa. The one I'd fought with 2 weeks ago over selling the Voss family vineyard, my late husband Marcus's legacy. She wanted the money. I refused. The next morning, police returned. "Why did Leonard Hale write your name in his apartment?" the detective asked. Next to 2 others, crossed out. I had no answer. But I had a question. Why me? That afternoon, I found an envelope under my door. No stamp, just my name in blue ink. Inside, a newspaper clipping about a 1998 corporate fraud case. Voss Vineyards mentioned. And a note. It started with Marcus's inheritance. Trust no one. Marcus died 6 years ago in a car crash. I had never questioned it. Until now. I went to the basement security room. Ethan Park, the 25-year-old super, let me in. The footage from the murder day, it's erased. 5-minute gap. Who can delete footage? Only the manager or owners with access. Like Vanessa Voss on 8? Ethan nodded. He pulled up another file. 8:12 p.m., the night before the murder. Vanessa entering with a large black duffel. 8:22 p.m. Running out. MP. Face hidden. But the silk robe is identical to the one she wore at family dinners. I copied the files, hid them. That night, someone broke in. I woke to floorboards creaking, a shadow at my desk, feminine, slender, holding a key. She opened the drawer, took the envelope, fled. The scent of jasmine perfume lingered, Vanessa's. I didn't sleep again. I called Ethan. Back up everything. He did. Then the text came. Stop digging, or join Leonard. Unknown number. I stared at apartment 8B's lit window. Someone was watching, and I was done being prey. I gathered Marcus's old files, found a sealed letter. Eleanor, if I die, find Leonard Hale. He has proof. Kendra Reed is dangerous. Kendra Reed, Vanessa's maiden name. Leonard wasn't random. He was Marcus's whistleblower, and Vanessa had silenced him. Almost silenced me. I called my son. Julian, meet me. Alone. He came. I showed him the files, the footage, the note. He went white. Mom, she said Dad's crash was an accident. It wasn't. That night Vanessa called. Stay out of my business, Eleanor. Or Amelia pays, my granddaughter. 8 years old. I didn't reply. I hung up and made a plan. Because Leonard Hale didn't die for nothing. He died to wake me. And I was wide awake. I hung up on Vanessa's threat about Amelia and felt the air leave my lungs like I'd been punched in the soul. My granddaughter, 8 years old, freckles across her nose, still believed in Santa, was now a pawn in a game I never asked to play. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m., but time had stopped meaning anything. Harborview Towers wasn't a home anymore. It was a cage, and I was the only one who knew the bars were closing in. I sat at Marcus's old roll-top desk, the one he'd refinished himself in 1987, and opened the bottom drawer, the one with the false panel. Inside, a second sealed envelope in his handwriting. Eleanor, if Leonard is gone, go to the vineyard, cellar vault, code, Amelia's birthday. I stared at the words until they blurred. The Voss family vineyard, 200 acres in Napa, left to me in trust. Vanessa had been trying to force a sale for 3 years. I hadn't been back since Marcus's funeral. I called Ethan. Drive me to Napa. Now. He didn't ask questions. By 3:05 a.m., we were in his pickup, the city lights fading behind us. The vineyard was dark when we arrived. The old stone house loomed like a ghost. I used Marcus's spare key, still hidden under the third flower pot. Inside, dust danced in the flashlight beam. I went straight to the cellar. The vault door was steel, biometric. I entered 03/14/17, Amelia's birthday. It clicked open. Inside, ledgers, 20 years of Voss Vineyards finances. USB drives labeled KR fraud. Photos, Vanessa meeting with offshore bankers in 2018. One audio recorder. I pressed play. Marcus's voice, weak, from a hospital bed. Leonard found the shell companies. Kendra Reed, Vanessa, siphoned $42 million. If I die, she'll come for Eleanor. Protect Amelia. Tell the world. I sank to my knees. Marcus hadn't died in a crash. He'd been poisoned. Slow, deliberate. Ethan copied everything. We left at 5:42 a.m. Back in the city, I went to Julian. Showed him the audio, the ledgers, the photos. He vomited in the sink. Mom, she said Dad had a heart attack. She gave him one. He cried. Not for his wife. For the lie he'd lived. At 7:11 a.m., the first wave hit. I emailed the files to FBI tip line. Anonymous. Subject, Voss Vineyards murder and fraud, 42 million embezzled. At 7:33 a.m., the second wave. Vanessa's phone rang. She didn't answer. She was packing. Suitcases in the hall. Amelia's teddy bear on the floor. Julian walked in. "Where are you going?" "Business trip." "With my daughter?" She froze. He locked the door. Called me. "Mom, come, now." I arrived with Ethan and 2 off-duty cops I'd hired. Vanessa tried to run. They cuffed her. Amelia cried in my arms. At 8:02 a.m., the third wave. FBI raided 8B. Found. Poison in a vitamin bottle. Fake passport. $2.1 million in cash. Vanessa screamed. "You old bitch, you'll never prove it." I played the audio. Marcus's voice filled the room. She went silent. At 8:19 a.m., the fourth wave. FP. News broke. Napa heiress arrested in 20-year fraud and murder plot. FP. Voss revenge. Trending in 8:47. The fifth wave. Leonard Hale's body. Poison traces found. At 9:30 p.m. The sixth wave. I took Amelia to the vineyard. We walked the rows. She picked a grape. "Grandma, why did Mommy lie?" I knelt. Because some people forget love is stronger than money. At 9:17 a.m., the seventh wave. Vanessa's trial date set. Life without parole. At 10:03 a.m., the eighth wave. I stood in the cellar vault, opened a bottle of 1998 Voss Reserve, poured 2 glasses, one for me, one for Leonard. I left his on the table. "Thank you," I whispered. At 10:17 a.m., the ninth wave. The building held a memorial. Leonard Hale, quiet hero. I spoke. He saved my life. He gave me truth, and truth gave me family. At 11:03 a.m., the 10th wave. Amelia and I planted a new vine. Named it Leonard's Legacy. She smiled. "Will it grow big?" "Bigger than fear," I said. The war was over. The vineyard bloomed, and I was no longer the widow in 7A. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian, grandmother, alive. A Voss family vineyard woke to a dawn so soft it felt like forgiveness. It was April 14th, 2026, 6 months since Vanessa Voss had been led away in cuffs, and the world learned that Leonard Hale had died to protect me. The Leonard's Legacy vine had already sprouted, tiny green shoots curling toward the sun like fingers reaching for hope. Amelia stood beside me in the dirt, 8.5 now, her boots too big, her smile too wide. She held a watering can shaped like a dinosaur. "Grandma, will it make grapes this year?" "Not yet, love, but it will remember why we planted it." I was no longer just Eleanor Voss of apartment 7A. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of the legacy, and the vineyard had become my war room, my sanctuary, my proof that truth outlives poison. At 6:03 a.m., the 11th wave began. A black SUV rolled up the gravel drive. FBI Special Agent Maya Ruiz stepped out, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She carried a thick folder stamped "Classified, Voss Fraud Network." "Miss Voss, we need you in San Francisco, today." I looked at Amelia. She nodded. "I'll water Leonard." By 7:11 a.m., we were in a federal conference room. On the table, 17 shell companies traced to Vanessa, and $68 million recovered. 3 offshore banks frozen. One name circled in red: Reginald Klein, silent partner. Reginald Klein, Doris Klein's husband on the 5th floor. The man who fixed everyone's plumbing and never spoke above a whisper. Agent Ruiz slid a photo across. Reginald meeting Vanessa in Zurich, 2019. Another, Leonard Hale, following them. Undercover. Leonard wasn't just Marcus's auditor, Ruiz said. He was FBI. Deep cover. 22 years. My knees buckled. Leonard hadn't been a neighbor. He'd been a ghost, watching over us. At 8:02 a.m., the 12th wave. Back at Harbor View Towers. Doris Klein answered her door in curlers. Eleanor? What? FBI swarmed. Reginald in the kitchen, cuffed. He didn't fight, just looked at me. I'm sorry. Eleanor. She paid me. At 8:19 a.m., the 13th wave. News helicopters circled. Voss fraud widens, building super and wife implicated. Leonard was FBI. At 8:47 a.m., the 14th wave. I went to Leonard's apartment, sealed since his death. FBI let me in. On the wall, photos of Amelia from birth. My grocery lists, taped like evidence. One note in his handwriting. If I fail, tell Eleanor, Marcus loved her enough to die for the truth. I cried, for the first time since the elevator. At 9:03 a.m., the 15th wave. Julian arrived at the vineyard. Divorce papers signed, custody sold to me. He knelt in the dirt. Mom, I was blind. I hugged him. Love isn't blind, son. Fear is. At 9:17 a.m., the 16th wave. The Leonard Hale Foundation launched. $10 million seed from recovered funds. Mission: protect whistleblowers. Shelter their families. First grant, Amelia's college fund. At 10:03 a.m., the 17th wave. I stood in the cellar, opened Marcus's 1998 reserve, poured 3 glasses. One for me. One for Marcus. One for Leonard. I raised mine. To the ghosts who kept us alive. At 10:17 a.m., the 18th wave. Amelia ran in. Grandma, the vine has buds. I knelt. Tiny green pearls. Leonard's first grapes, I whispered. At 11:03 a.m., the 19th wave. FBI press conference. Leonard Hale, sacrifice exposed a 25-year fraud ring. Eleanor Voss's courage closed it. I spoke last. Leonard didn't die in that elevator. He lived in every truth we told today. At 11:17 a.m., the 20th wave. The building held a second memorial. Leonard Hale, FBI legend. His badge retired, his name on the lobby wall. Doris wept. Life sentence. At 12:03 p.m., the 21st wave, Amelia and I planted 10 more vines, one for every year Leonard watched over us. She named them: truth, courage, love, family, justice, hope, Amelia, Marcus, Leonard. At 12:17 p.m., the 22nd wave, Julian moved into 7A. We cooked pot roast. Amelia set the table. 3 plates, always 3. At 12:03 p.m., the nightmare was over. The legacy had just begun. The Voss family vineyard shimmered under a harvest moon, so full it painted the hills silver. It was September 28, 2026, exactly 1 year since Leonard Hale slipped me that note in the elevator and died to keep me breathing. The Leonard's legacy vine had exploded, clusters of deep purple grapes hanging like promises. Amelia, now 9, ran between the rows with a basket, her laughter louder than the crickets. Julian followed, carrying crates. His shoulders broader, his eyes clearer. Harbor View Towers felt like another lifetime. We had moved here full-time. The vineyard wasn't just land, it was home. At 7:03 p.m., the 23rd wave began. A convoy of black SUVs rolled up the drive. FBI Director Helena Grant stepped out. Tall, silver-streaked hair, no nonsense. Behind her, 20 agents, 3 news vans, 1 armored truck. "Ms. Voss," she said. "We need the cellar. Now." I led them down. A vault door, still biometric, opened to Amelia's birthday. Inside, new evidence lockers. Sealed boxes, labeled "Hail Final Files." One envelope addressed to me in Leonard's handwriting. Director Grant handed it over. "We found this in a Zurich safe. Leonard's dead drop." I opened it. Inside, 1 USB labeled KR Endgame. 1 photo, Leonard, younger, in FBI vest. Shaking Marcus's hand, 1995. 1 letter, Eleanor. "If you're reading this, I failed. Vanessa was the puppet. The puppeteer is still free. Name, Victor Langford. Vanessa's uncle. Board member, Voss Vineyards. He ordered the hits. Marcus, me, you. USB has everything. Finish it." My hands shook. Victor Langford. The man who sent Christmas cards, who toasted at Amelia's baptism, who smiled at Marcus's funeral. At 7:33 p.m., the 24th wave. FBI plugged in the USB. Bank records. Emails. Audio. Victor to Vanessa, 2019. "If the old bat won't sell, bury her with Marcus." At 7:47 p.m., the 25th wave. Raid on Langford Estate. Bel Air. Victor arrested in silk pajamas. $127 million seized. Murder for hire charges. At 8:02 p.m., the 26th wave. News broke globally. Voss Vineyard mastermind uncovered. FBI hero's final message leads to arrest. Hashtag Leonard's justice. At 8:19 a.m., the 27th wave. I stood in the vineyard. Amelia beside me. Julian on my other side. We opened 1998 Voss Reserve, Marcus's last vintage. Poured 4 glasses, 1 for me, 1 for Julian, 1 for Amelia, 1 for Leonard. I raised mine, to the man who never left us. At 8:47 a.m., the 28th wave. The Leonard Hale Act passed Congress. Whistleblower Protection Fund, $500 million. Signed by the President. My testimony on C-SPAN. I wore Leonard's gray cardigan. At 9:03 a.m., the 29th wave. Victor's trial. Life, no parole. He glared at me from the dock. I stared back, unbroken. At 9:17 a.m., the 30th wave. Amelia harvested the first Leonard grapes. We made 1 bottle, labeled Truth 2026, in memory of L.H. She corked it herself. At 10:03 a.m., the 31st wave, the vineyard expanded, 100 new acres. Leonard's Row, planted by FBI families, whistleblower widows, Amelia's classmates. At 10:17 a.m., the 32nd wave. Julian proposed to Ethan Park, the super who saved us. In the cellar, under Marcus's portrait, Amelia was ring-bearer. I cried. Happy tears. At 11:03 a.m., the 33rd wave. Harvest Festival, 10,000 visitors. Leonard Hale Museum opened in the old barn, his cardigan in a glass case. The note, framed, Amelia cut the ribbon. At 11:17 a.m., the 34th wave. I stood alone in the vault, opened the Truth 2026 bottle, poured 1 glass, left it on the table. FP? We finished it. It was courage. Planted in blood. Watered with truth. Harvested in love. The Voss family vineyard glowed under a harvest moon so bright it turned the fog into liquid silver. It was October 31, 2027, 2 years to the day since Leonard Hale pressed that folded note into my hand and died between floors. The Leonard's legacy rose had become a cathedral of purple, grapes so heavy the vines bowed in reverence. Amelia, now 10, stood on a crate in the crush pad, purple-stained fingers, directing workers like a general. Julian and Ethan, newly married, carried crates, laughing. The Truth 2026 bottle had sold at auction for $1.2 million to fund the Leonard Hale Foundation. Tonight, we celebrated Harvest Night, our first public festival. 10,000 lanterns floated above the hills. At 7:03 p.m., the 35th wave began. A helicopter landed in the East Field. FBI Director Helena Grant stepped out with a sealed briefcase. Eleanor, one last piece. A previous content dropped. This is often the content of painting. I took it to the cellar vault, plugged it in. Screen lit. Video file dated October 30th, 2025. The night before he died. Leonard, gaunt, in his apartment. Unconscious toward the planet, and a day before he died. They'll try to seize the vineyard legally. Stop them. For Marcus. For Amelia. For me. At 7:33 p.m., the 36th wave. Emergency board meeting, Voss Vineyards Trust. 7 members, 3 loyal to Victor. They tabled a forced sale to Phoenix Holdings, a shell company. I crashed the Zoom. Played Leonard's video. The 3 traders went pale. Vote canceled. Phoenix dissolved. At 7:47 p.m., the 37th wave. FBI raided Phoenix HQ in Delaware. Found forged deeds. Bribes to 2 board members. 1 audio. Victor from prison. Burn the old woman's vines if you have to. At 8:02 p.m., the 38th wave. News vans swarmed the vineyard. Final Voss conspiracy uncovered. Hero's posthumous video saves estate. Poe, hashtag, Leonard's Omega. Amelia led the lantern release. 10,000 lights rising. 1 for every life Leonard's truth touched. She whispered, "Fly high, Mr. Hale." At 8:47 p.m., the 40th wave. I opened the Truth 2026 reserve bottle. Poured 5 glasses. 1 for me. 1 for Julian. 1 for Ethan. 1 for Amelia. 1 for Leonard. We toasted on the crush pad. To the man who never stopped fighting. At 9:03 p.m., the 41st wave. The Leonard Hale Global Scholarship announced. $50 million. 1,000 students worldwide. First recipient, Amelia Voss, future winemaker. At 9:17 p.m., the 42nd wave. Harvest dance. Amelia in a purple dress. Julian and Ethan slow dancing under lanterns. I stood alone. Felt a hand on my shoulder. Looked, no one. But the breeze smelled like gray cardigan wool. At 10:03 p.m., the 43rd wave. I went to the Leonard Hale Museum. Stood before his cardigan in the case. The note, framed. A new plaque. He saved 1 life. He changed the world. Occurred at 1:25 p.m. The 44th wave. Midnight crush. First grapes of Truth 2027. Amelia pressed the button. Juice ran purple. She dipped a finger. Tasted. Sweet, Grandma. Like justice. At 11:03 p.m., the 45th wave. Fireworks over the hills. LH in gold sparks. The crowd roared. I cried. Silent. Grateful. At 11:17 p.m., the 46th wave. I found a new envelope under the museum door. Blue ink. Leonard's handwriting. Inside. Eleanor, you did it. Live now. Love now. The vines are safe. So are you. L. I pressed it to my heart. The nightmare was buried. The legacy was eternal. The Voss family vineyard slept under a sky so star-drunk it looked like God had spilled diamonds across black velvet. It was December 24th, 2027. 3 years to the day since Leonard Hale's heart stopped beating in that elevator, and mine started beating for truth. The Leonard's legacy rose had become a purple ocean, grapes harvested, wine aging in oak, labels reading, Truth 2027, for the silent heroes. Amelia, now 10.5, had grown an inch, lost 2 teeth, and gained a vineyard dog named Hale. Julian and Ethan's wedding photo hung in the tasting room. Smiles wide, rings glinting, Amelia between them in a tiny tuxedo vest. The Leonard Hale Museum had welcomed 250,000 visitors. Tonight was Christmas Eve, and the estate glowed with 50,000 lights, every bulb a memory of the man who saved us all. At 6:03 p.m., the 47th wave began. A convoy of 18 news vans lined the drive. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, NHK, Globo, all here for the global premiere of The Elevator Note, a documentary produced by the Leonard Hale Foundation. I stood on the porch in a red coat, Amelia on one side, Julian and Ethan on the other. Hale barked at the cameras. Director Sophia Chen, Oscar winner, approached. Eleanor, we have one final scene, your voiceover, live in the cellar. I nodded. We descended. The vault door opened to Amelia's birthday. Inside, oak barrels stamped LH 2027. One microphone, one chair, one bottle, Truth 2027, uncorked. Sophia counted down. 3, 2, 1. I spoke to the world. 3 years ago, a man I barely knew pressed a note into my hand and died so I could live. This is his story. This is our story. And tonight, it becomes yours. At 6:33 p.m., the 48th wave. The documentary aired simultaneously in 112 countries. 1.8 billion viewers. Scenes. Elevator reenactment. Actor as Leonard, trembling hands. My grocery bag spilling, apples rolling like tears. FBI raid footage. Vanessa in cuffs. Victor Langford's prison interview. Broken, confessing. Amelia planting the first vine, dirt on her cheeks. My voice. He wasn't a neighbor. He was a father to the truth. At 7:03 p.m., the 49th wave. Hashtag The Elevator Note broke the internet. 2.1 billion tweets. TikTok, stitched with kids holding notes. Be brave. Instagram, flooded with purple grape emojis. At 7:33 p.m., the 50th wave. A surprise guest arrived by helicopter. President Elena Morales. She stepped onto the crush pad. Eleanor Voss on behalf of a grateful nation. She presented the Presidential Medal of Freedom, gold, heavy, engraved for courage that saved lives and restored justice. Amelia pinned it on my coat. Hale licked the medal. At 7:47 p.m., the 51st wave. The Leonard Hale Global Network launched. $1 billion pledged by 47 governments. 10,000 safe houses for whistleblowers. First house, Harbor View Towers, Apt 4C, Leonard's old home. At 8:02 p.m., the 52nd wave. We open the Truth 2027 barrel room. 1,000 bottles, signed by Amelia. $10,000 each. Sold out in 11 minutes. Proceeds. Leonard Hale Children's Hospital, Napa Valley. At 8:19 p.m., the 53rd wave. Amelia led carols in the museum. 5,000 voices. Silent night. We changed the lyrics. Silent note, holy note, truth was born. At 8:47 p.m., the 54th wave. I found a new letter under the museum Christmas tree. Blue ink. Leonard's handwriting. Eleanor, you turned my death into 1,000 lives. Drink the 2027. It tastes like home. L. I opened a bottle, poured 6 glasses. One for me, one for Julian, one for Ethan, one for Amelia, one for Hale, one for Leonard. At 9:03 p.m., the 55th wave. Fireworks spelled lame. Across the sky. 100,000 sparks. Amelia gasped. Grandma, he's waving. At 9:17 p.m., the 56th wave. The Voss Family Trust announced, vineyard preserved in perpetuity. No sale, ever. Board dissolved. Sole trustee, Amelia Voss, age 10. She signed with a purple crayon. At 10:03 p.m., the 57th wave. Midnight mass in the barrel room. Priest, rabbi, imam, all spoke. Leonard Hale taught us. One note can save the world. Amelia read the elevator note aloud. At 10:17 p.m., the 58th wave. I stood alone in the vault, touched the 1998 reserve, Marcus's last, poured one final glass, left it beside Leonard's. Merry Christmas, old friend, we're free. At 11:03 p.m., the 59th wave. Snow began to fall, first in Napa in 40 years. Amelia ran outside, caught flakes on her tongue. It's Leonard's confetti. At 11:17 p.m., the 60th wave. The world went to sleep. But the vineyard sang. Every vine, every bottle, every heart. Truth 2027 wasn't wine. It was legacy. And Leonard Hale, he never left. He lived in the dirt. In the grapes. In us. The Voss family vineyard stood wrapped in dawn mist so thick it turned the hills into watercolor dreams. It was March 15th, 2028. 3 years and 5 months since Leonard Hale whispered, "Don't say anything," and died so I could live. The Leonard's legacy rose had become a living monument, grapes swelling like purple hearts, vines stretching over 500 acres now. Every leaf, a silent thank you to the man who never asked for thanks. Amelia, 11 in 3 weeks, rode her bike between the rows with Hale, the vineyard dog, sprinting beside her, tongue lolling, tail a helicopter. Julian and Ethan had opened Truth and Oak, a tasting room that served Truth 2027 at $2,500 a glass. All proceeds to the Leonard Hale Children's Hospital, now under construction. The Leonard Hale Museum had broken 1 million visitors. Tonight was Spring Equinox Gala, our first black tie event under the stars. At 5:03 a.m., the 61st wave began. A private jet landed on the Vineyard airstrip. UN Secretary General Rafael Ortiz stepped out with a delegation of 20 world leaders. They carried a bronze plaque the size of a door. Eleanor Voss, Ortiz said, the United Nations wishes to honor Leonard Hale with the Global Courage Medal, first ever awarded posthumously. I led them to the Leonard Hale Memorial Grove, a circle of 100 ancient oaks planted in his memory. The plaque read, "To Leonard Hale, one note, one life, one world changed, 2025-2028. Amelia unveiled it. Hale barked. Cameras flashed. At 5:33 a.m., the 62nd wave, the Leonard Hale Global Network announced 100,000 safe houses operational in 87 countries. $2.3 billion raised. First graduate, a Syrian girl who exposed a warlord, now studying at Stanford on a Voss scholarship. At 6:03 a.m., the 63rd wave, I found a new envelope tucked into the plaque's base. Blue ink, Leonard's handwriting. Eleanor, the world knows my name. Now teach them my why. Opened the Omega Vault. I went to the cellar vault. A second door, hidden behind the 1998 reserve rack, opened to a retinal scan. Leonard's eye, preserved in a biometric pod. It clicked. Inside the Omega Vault, 100 terabytes of encrypted files, one hologram projector, one chair. I sat. Leonard appeared, life-size 3D 2025. If you're here, the vineyard is safe. These files expose Project Phoenix Phase 2, a global fraud ring using vineyards to launder $14 billion. Vanessa was a cog. Victor was a gear. The engine is still running. Name, Cassandra Langford, Victor's sister. She's coming for the vines. Stop her. For Amelia. For every child who deserves clean dirt. At 6:33 a.m., the 64th wave. I called FBI Director Grant. Cassandra Langford, alive, in Monaco. Raid launched. At 7 o'clock, 3 minutes a.m., the 65th wave. Monaco police stormed Casino de Monte Carlo penthouse. Cassandra, 60, elegant, venomous. Arrested mid-poker game. Found. $4.1 billion in crypto wallets. Fake deeds to 17 vineyards worldwide, including Voss. One audio. Cassandra to Victor, 2027. If the girl inherits, poison the soil. Salt the earth. End the Voss name. At 7:33 a.m., the 66th wave. P.S. News exploded. Global wine fraud exposed. Hero's hologram leads to $14 billion arrest. Hashtag Leonard's Omega 2. At 7:47 a.m. I stood in the grove. Amelia beside me. We opened Truth 2027 Magnum. We poured 7 glasses. One for me. One for Julian. One for Amelia. One for Ethan. One for Hale. One for Leonard. One for Marcus. To the man who saw tomorrow. At 8:02 a.m., the 68th wave. The Voss Soil Protection Act passed UN General Assembly. $5 billion to prevent vineyard poisoning worldwide. Signed with Truth 2027 Inc. At 8:19 a.m., the 69th wave. Cassandra's trial, televised. She sneered at me via video link. I played Leonard's hologram. Jury wept. At 8:47 a.m., the 70th wave. At 8:47 a.m., the 70th wave. These intentions were transformed into prominent focusing points and power. The Leonard Hale Children's Hospital broke ground. 500 beds. Free care. Amelia turned the first soil with a purple shovel. At 9:17 a.m., the 72nd wave. Gala night. 20,000 guests. Red carpet between the vines. Beyoncé performed Halo. Renamed Halo. Amelia danced with the president. At 10:03 a.m., the 73rd wave. I found another envelope under the gala stage. Blue ink. Eleanor, you stop the engine. Now drive. The world is your vineyard. L. Less. Theria. At 10:17 a.m. The 74th wave. The Voss Global Initiative launched with 10 billion vines worldwide. Carbon sinks. Jobs. Hope. Planted by the Stanford graduate. At 11:30 a.m. Witnessing midnight toast. Truth 2028. Preview barrel. Period. Amelia corked the first bottle. Labeled Forever Hale. At 11:17 a.m. The 76th wave. Fireworks spelled out Thank you Leonard in 12 languages. The sky wept purple sparks. At 12:03 a.m. The 77th wave. I stood alone in the Omega Vault. Leonard's hologram flickered. You did it, Eleanor. The note was the seed. You grew the forest. Rest now. Love now. Live now. He faded. I left the vault. Sealed it. I will. The nightmare was ash. The legacy was infinite. A Voss family vineyard, breathed under a sky so vast it swallowed time itself. It was December 31st, 2028. 4 years exactly since Leonard Hale pressed that folded square of paper into my palm and gave his life so mine could continue. The Leonard's legacy, Rose had become a purple empire, 1,000 acres of vines now, every grape a syllable in the longest thank you ever spoken. Amelia, 11 3/4, rode a purple bicycle between the rows with Hale the vineyard dog and Hale Jr., her new puppy, racing beside her. Julian and Ethan had expanded Truth and Oak into a global chain. 47 locations. Every bottle Truth 2028 sold out before sunrise. The Leonard Hale Children's Hospital had opened its doors to 10,000 patients in its first year. The Leonard Hale Museum had welcomed 5 million souls. Tonight was New Year's Eve, and the vineyard glowed with 100,000 lanterns, one for every life Leonard's note had touched. At 6:03 p.m., the 78th wave began. A fleet of 47 satellites, Voss Hale constellation, lit up the sky in a perfect circle above the vineyard. Elon Musk had donated them. Each satellite beamed Truth 2028 labels to 7.9 billion phones worldwide. Message: one note, one life, one world. Happy New Year from Leonard Hale. At 6:33 p.m., the 79th wave. UN Secretary-General Ortiz returned with 192 world leaders, one from every member state. They carried a golden vine, solid gold, 10 feet tall. Eleanor Voss, Ortiz said, the United Nations declares the Voss family vineyard a global heritage site. No nation may touch it, ever. Amelia planted the golden vine at the grove's center. Hale barked. Hale Jr. peed on it. At 7:03 p.m., the 80th wave, I found a final envelope wedged into the golden vine's base. Blue ink. Leonard's handwriting. Eleanor, the world is safe. The vineyard is eternal. One last gift. Open the eternal vault. L. I went to the cellar. Behind the Omega Vault, a third door. Retinal scan, my eye. It opened. The eternal vault. One cryopod. One hologram. One bottle. Truth 2028 Eternal Reserve, 1 of 1. The hologram activated. Leonard, younger, smiling, 1995. Eleanor, if you're here, the mission is complete. Inside the pod, my heart. Literally, preserved. Plant it under the golden vine. Let it beat in the soil. Forever. The bottle is for Amelia's 18th birthday. Tell her, truth never dies. L. I cried. Silent, grateful. Whole. At 7:33 p.m., the 81st wave, we planted Leonard's heart under the golden vine. Amelia poured Truth 2028 over the soil. Purple earth. Purple future. At 7:47 p.m., the 82nd wave. Global toast. 8 billion glasses raised. Truth 2028 in every home. Hashtag one note, one world. Essen stage. At 8:02 p.m., the 83rd wave. The Leonard Hale Eternal Scholarship announced. $10 billion. 1 million students by 2030. First class. 47,000 kids named Leonard or Eleanor. At 8:18 p.m., the 84th wave. Amelia led midnight countdown from the crush pad. 10, 9, 8. 192 leaders joined. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2029. Fireworks spelled Leonard Hale in purple, gold, blue. visible from space. Satellites beamed it to every screen. At 12:03 a.m., the 85th wave. End of 201. I opened the Truth 2028 Eternal Reserve, poured 8 glasses. One for me, one for Julian, one for Ethan, one for Amelia, one for Hale, one for Hale Jr., one for Marcus, end of 201, one for Uriel, one for Leonard, end of 201. We toasted under the golden vine, to the man whose heart beats in our soil, end of 201. At 12:17 a.m., the 86th wave. The Voss Hale World Peace Vine, planted. One vine in every country. 192 vines. 192 hearts. End of one note. At 1:03 a.m., the 87th wave. Amelia fell asleep on my lap. I carried her to the Leonard Hale suite, her new bedroom in the museum. Tucked her in. Left the Eternal Reserve on her nightstand. Note, for your 18th, love Grandma and Leonard. At 2:03 a.m., the 88th wave, I stood alone under the golden vine, touched the soil, felt a heartbeat. Leonard's, mine, ours. The nightmare was stardust. The legacy was cosmic. The Voss family vineyard shimmered under a blood-orange sunset that bled across the Pacific like a promise kept. It was October 31st, 2030, exactly 5 years since Leonard Hale slipped me that note and died between floors so I could live forever. The Leonard's legacy empire now spanned 5,000 acres. Rows of purple, so dense they looked like a bruised sky fallen to earth. Amelia, 13 in 3 months. Rode a solar-powered drone bike above the vines, Hale and Hale Jr. sprinting below, tails wagging like metronomes. Julian and Ethan had turned Truth and Oak into a planetary brand. 1,000 locations, every bottle Truth 2030, sold for $5,000. Every cent to the Leonard Hale Children's Hospital Network. Now, 47 hospitals worldwide. The Leonard Hale Museum had welcomed 25 million souls. The Voss Hale constellation beamed Truth 2030 labels to 8.1 billion devices. Tonight was Truth Day, global holiday declared by the UN. Every nation paused. Every screen glowed purple. At 5:03 p.m., the 89th wave began. 192 heads of state arrived in electric airships, silent, glowing, shaped like grapes. They carried a diamond vine, pure diamond, 15 feet tall, grown in a lab using carbon from Leonard's preserved heart. Eleanor Voss, UN Secretary General Ortiz said, voice cracking, "The world crowns you guardian of truth. The diamond vine is yours. Plant it where his heart beats." We marched to the golden vine. Amelia dug the hole. I lowered the diamond vine. Hale and Hale Jr. watered it with Truth 2030. The soil sparkled. At 5:33 p.m., the 90th wave. I found a final envelope fused into the diamond vine's base. Blue diamond ink, Leonard's handwriting. Eleanor, the world is purple. One last mission. Open the cosmic vault. L. I went to the cellar. Behind the eternal vault, a 4th door. Retinal scan, Amelia's eye. It opened. The cosmic vault, 1 quantum computer, 1 hologram sphere, 1 bottle, Truth 2030 Cosmic Reserve, 1 of 1, aged in space. The sphere activated. Leonard. Ageless, glowing, 1995. Eleanor, Amelia, if you're here, humanity is ready. The quantum drive holds Project Aurora, a plan to seed truth vines on Mars. Launch date, 2035. Amelia leads. The bottle is for launch day. Tell her. Truth travels at light speed. L. Amelia gasped. Mars? At 6:03 p.m., the 91st wave. At closing B, NASA and SpaceX confirmed. Aurora mission, 47 astronauts, 1,000 truth vines. Amelia Voss, mission commander, age 18. Launch, October 31st, 2035. At 6:33 p.m., the 92nd wave. Global Truth Day broadcast, 8.1 billion viewers. I spoke from the crush pad. 5 years ago, one man died in an elevator. Tonight, his heart seeds another world. This is Leonard's Aurora. At 7:03 p.m., the 93rd wave. At 192 nations, pledged $47 billion to Aurora. First colony, Hale City, Mars. At 7:33 p.m., the 94th wave. Amelia opened Truth 2030 Cosmic Reserve. Zero gravity pour. One for me. One for Julian. One for Ethan. One for Amelia. One for Hale. One for Hale Jr. One for Marcus. One for Leonard. One for Mars. We toasted under the diamond vine. To the man whose note crossed galaxies. At 7:47 p.m., the 95th wave. Satellite constellation beamed Leonard's note in 1,000 languages to every screen on Earth and the moon base. At 8:02 p.m., the 96th wave. Truth Day Parade, 47 million marchers worldwide, all wearing purple sashes. Amelia led Napa's contingent on her drone bike. At 8:19 p.m., the 97th wave. The Leonard Hale Mars Scholarship launched. $47 billion. 47,000 students to train for Aurora. First cadet, Amelia Voss. At 8:47 p.m., the 98th wave. Midnight launch simulation, holographic rocket, over the vineyard. 47 seconds to orbit. Amelia counted down. For Leonard. At 9:03 p.m., the 99th wave. I stood alone, under the diamond vine. Touched the soil. Felt two heartbeats, Leonard's and Mars. At 9:17 p.m., the 100th wave. Truth 2030 Cosmic Reserve, corked for 2035. Label, From Earth's Dirt to Martian Skies, LH Forever. The nightmare was a footnote. The legacy was interplanetary. The Voss family vineyard blazed under a sky split open by auroras, purple, gold, and Martian red, so vivid they painted the Pacific in liquid fire. It was October 31st, 2035, 10 years to the day since Leonard Hale pressed that folded note into my hand and died so the universe could live. The Leonard's legacy empire now covered 10,000 acres on Earth, 1,000 on Mars, and 47 orbital vineyards floating in low Earth orbit. Amelia Voss, 18 today, stood on the Aurora launch pad in a purple flight suit, helmet under one arm, Hale 3, grandson of the original, at her feet. Julian and Ethan, gray at the temples, stood behind her, eyes wet. The Leonard Hale Children's Hospital Network had healed 47 million children. The Leonard Hale Museum had welcomed 100 million souls. The Voss-Hale constellation now numbered 4,700 satellites, beaming truth at 2035 to 9.2 billion devices across 3 planets. Tonight was Aurora launch, the first human mission to plant truth vines on Mars. 47 billion viewers watched live. At 6:03 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, the 101st wave began. 192 heads of state, 47 Mars colonists, and 1,000 drones formed a corridor of light from the vineyard to the pad. They carried the cosmic vine, grown from Leonard's heart cells, crystallized in 0G, 47 feet tall, pure diamond and living tissue. Amelia Voss, UN Secretary-General Ortiz said, voice trembling, you carry Earth's truth to the stars. Plant this where Leonard's heart beats on Mars. Amelia saluted. Hale 3 barked. The vine was loaded into Aurora 1. At 6:33 p.m., the 102nd wave. I found the ultimate envelope fused into the cosmic vine's base. Blue nebula ink. Leonard's handwriting. Kel Mars, hello from Grandma. She grinned. E105th wave. Operations 820 orbital vineyards saluted with grape juice fountains in vacuum. Truth 2035 labels glowed on every screen. At 8:02 p.m., the 106th wave. Mars landing, Hale City crater. Amelia stepped out. She planted the cosmic vine. It bloomed, instantly, genetically engineered. Purple grapes on red soil. At 8:19 p.m., the 107th wave. Amelia opened the Truth 2030 Cosmic Reserve, aged 10 years in space. Poured 10 glasses in 0G orbs. One for her, one for the crew, one for Hale 3, stowed as embryo, born on Mars. One for Earth, one for the Moon, one for Marcus, one for Julian, one for Ethan, one for me, one for Leonard. At PM, mine say toasted. To the note that started it all, truth is now Martian. At 8:47 p.m., the 108th wave. Mars-Earth link-up. I spoke from the vineyard. Leonard Hale died in an elevator on Earth. Tonight, his heart blooms on Mars. This is home. At 9:03 p.m., the 109th wave. Global Truth Day. Permanent. October 31st. Forever. 47 billion purple lights worldwide. At 9:14 p.m., the 110th wave. Amelia's first Mars harvest. 47 grapes. Pressed into Truth Mars 1. Beamed recipe to Earth. 47 billion bottles printed in homes. At 10:03 p.m., the 111th wave. I stood under the diamond vine, touched the soil, felt 3 heartbeats. Leonard's, Amelia's, Mars. At 10:17 p.m., the 112th wave. Final hologram from the cosmic vault. Self-activating. Leonard, eternal, smiling. Eleanor, Amelia, humanity. The note was the seed. You grew the universe. I'm home, in every vine, in every heart. Truth is eternal. L. He faded into purple stardust. At 11:03 p.m., I, the 113th wave. Aurora 1 return capsule landed in the vineyard. Amelia stepped out. Martian dirt on her boots. Truth Mars 1 in hand. She hugged me. Grandma, Mars tastes like hope. At 11:17 p.m., the 114th wave. Global toast. 47 billion glasses. Truth Mars 1. One sip. One truth. At 12:00 a.m., November 1st, 2035. Fireworks spelled Leonard Hale, Earth to Eternity, across Sol System, visible on Mars. I opened the Truth 2030 Cosmic Reserve, saved 10 years. Poured 11 glasses. One for every soul who carried the note. The nightmare was a myth. The legacy was cosmic. Truth was home. The end. The beginning. Forever.